Thanks for checking out my movie. This is round 5 of season 2 of a career series I'm doing in some 1992 Formula 1 cars. And just while we do the first lap of the race from some external cams, this video is mainly going to be about the in-car perspective rather than going full Hollywood and pretending to be Murray Walker. So while the cars do their first lap, just to fill you in on the settings, we're in RFactor 2, no assists at all, so no traction control, no ABS, although I confess I've got the car on invulnerable because the AI can do some really strange things when you're coming up to lap them. So I don't use it to barge my competitors off the track, but I just use it to save tears before the bedtime in what can easily be a 90-minute, or in the case of Monaco last week, a 1 hour and 52-minute race. So the AI vary a bit from track to track. Sometimes 100% they're perfect, other times 100% they're not good enough and you've got to crank it up to like 104. Here in Canada they're pretty tough, and last time at 100% I was floundering a bit. I set it so that I've really got to work in the practice session to match my teammate, and that's kind of the rule of thumb. I have 200 litres of fuel in the car and I work hard on setup, work hard on my driving, and just try to get a performance level roughly equal to my teammate, which seems to be where we want to be. So I'm going to share with you some of the dramas and some of the insights that occurred, and it felt incredibly realistic actually in this race, so let's get into it. I'm lining up 7th on the grid, having been out qualified by both Williams, both McLarens, my teammate Martin Brundle in a Benetton, and Alesi in the quicker of the 2 Ferraris. The tyres are cold and the cars are pretty heavy with about 180 litres of fuel. And you can see there I get a bit of a sideways movement off the line. The rubbered line is making an incredible difference here to grip. One side of the car will grip up better than the other, and more than a few times as we go through this, you'll see that it sort of tends to start off on a bit of a semi-spin. Next time I set this up, I might set it up with a little bit more saturation across the whole track rather than just a pure rubbered line. So the cars are pretty heavy, tyres are cold. I've managed to stay ahead of Hakkinen in one of the Lotus, which would not be a good thing if he's in front of me, because although they've got the B-spec Ford engine and the Benetton's running the A-spec Ford engine, they're quick enough to make passing difficult. And at this stage in the opening laps, it's really a case of managing a pretty heavy car on pretty cold tyres that haven't really started to grip up, and try to just keep it tidy and keep it on the track. The other thing that happens is the AI seem to be a little quicker on full tanks and with new tyres. As the stint evolves and as the fuel level drops off, my pace is improving a bit. One thing that I did do was a bit of a toss-up between 2 aero settings. So these cars, you can set them up, the wings come from 0 to 20. In reality, I'm only using it in any given track somewhere between 15 and 20. So here was a trade-off whether to use wings on 16 or 17. I was marginally quicker with them set on 16, but the car is a real handful on worn tyres. So I took the decision to run a tiny bit more wing, knowing that it's going to make life a bit tougher on the straight in terms of attacking and defending, but make the car a lot stronger through the very difficult section 1 and part of section 2 here at the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve in Canada. It's a tricky old track, something that just goes up the island and back down the island. The opening sector is very twisty. Yeah, this circuit can be quite deceptive. Looks very straightforward, but sector 1 is very tricky. In some ways it's a little bit like the Hungara ring with walls that are a whole lot closer, and the long straights are a little bit like Monza, where the walls are a bit closer. Now I just slightly tagged my teammate Martin Brundle there unintentionally, and the thing is the AI tend to brake pretty conservatively into the hairpin and pull away quite well on the straight. My slightly higher aero setting is not helping me here, so I was always very conscious of trying to get a really good run on them into the hairpin and yet still manage a clean exit out of the hairpin so that I had a chance of grabbing a toe on the straight. With cars of competitive, comparable performance to mine, I didn't ever really manage to gain an advantage on the straight there. So I've settled down into a period of just being patient and trying to go as quick as I can, but still looking after the car and not making any big mistakes. It's really, really easy to just drop it here into a wall or into a curb. Now, the other thing, and we've got on board now, we've got a view from Brundle, my teammate's car, forward to Alesi. The fantastic thing that's happened for me is that Alesi has somehow managed to jump him at the start. And this means for me that Brundle, who at this stage of the race would have reasonably quicker car than me, he's being somewhat held up by Alesi. So that's a very, very good thing for me. So I'm trying to drive quickly, smoothly, look after the car, and I'm expecting as the fuel load burns off a bit to stay in touch with these guys, and then hopefully late in the stint to be able to start to pull them back in. So I can see them up in the distance there, which is giving me heart. They're pulling away ever so gently, but it's not silly. So the settings look around about right. This race is going to be an easy one stop. In season 1 I did a 42 lap race. I was running races of 1 hour. Here in season 2 I am running full race distance, so this is a 70 lap race, but I know that we can do 42 laps if we need to on one set of tyres, so it's an easy one stopper, which gives us a massive window. If I can stop anywhere between, I suppose, lap, if I wanted to be extreme, anywhere between about lap 25 and lap 40, 42 if I needed to. But the optimum in terms of tyre performance, of course, is going to be to stop dead halfway. But it's going to depend a little bit on the tactical situation. And right now I'm coming up on one of the Tyrrells, needing to lap him. We're on lap 22. Now over the first 12 laps, Brundle and Alesi pulled the gap, stretched it out to about 5 seconds or so. And now here at lap 22, the tables have turned a little, and I've inched closer to them, and I've got the gap to within sort of 2.5 seconds. Now, I'm being very cautious around this Tyrrell. I've had significant issues with the Tyrrell drivers both last season and the beginning of this season, so I really need to make sure of the pass, because I can't afford to get damage. But Alesi and Brundle are having no such issues and having a pretty smooth run through the back markers. Now I spent 5 laps here between lap 22 and lap 27, just with my head down, going as quick as I can, trying to inch closer to Brundle and Alesi. My target is, of course, I really want to be on Brundle's gearbox at the time of the pit window, so that I can potentially execute an undercut. I tell you what comes in here, it's very immersive, it's very realistic, is that the guy you're racing is your teammate. The two cars behind us, Harkonnen and Herbert in the 2 Lotuses, they shouldn't be a threat. If they are a threat, you're sort of not doing your job and you don't deserve your seat. So this is a lap car. This is Katayama in a LaRousse, and you can see here it can get quite messy with lap traffic. Now this was entirely my fault when you said from the overhead shot. I just had a massive lack of traction on one side of the car, which sort of sent me into a semi-spin and caused the contact. From the cockpit I thought, what is he doing? But in fact it was me causing the problems. It just seems I work really, really hard to get close to the competitive drivers and then just have some issues with lap traffic. So this is the same LaRousse of Katayama, and I've caught up to him here at sector 1 and managed to go under him with a little bit of cooperation that time, which was refreshing. So we're on lap 28 here, and I'm coming up on the Minardi Lamborghini of Morbidelli, and really what I'm trying to do is I'm approaching the pit window as I really want to be pretty darn quick now. I want to be executing laps as fast as possible, dealing with lap traffic as fast as possible, and unfortunately through these couple of little issues with Katayama, Brundle and Alesi have crept a little bit further up the road, so I want to clear Morbidelli as quickly as I can and chase after them. Now I'm within the outer edges of the pit window now, so other things I'm looking at is where are the gaps behind me, who's within 22, 23 seconds of me, and where am I going to come out. And it looks at this stage that, and Morbidelli has a big moment there, but still reclaims position on the chicane and makes me go around him. That clears Morbidelli. But I'm checking on where the gaps are behind me, and if I was to pit now, which I could, where am I going to end up? And the timings are telling me that I'd be coming out behind Harkonnen and better ahead of Herbert. So I decided to press on for a few more laps. So I'm coming up on the rear now of another lapped car. This is Bertrand Gachot, very famous London taxi passenger. Sometimes I like to call him Travis Bickle. But Gachot is pretty compliant and doesn't make life awkward for me. I get a nice clean pass out of the hairpin and onto the straight. So it's lap 29 now, and the next vehicle I'm going to come up against is Chiesa in a fond metal, and Chiesa can be pretty darn unpredictable. Now, while I'm catching Chiesa in his fond metal, I'll just take my hat off to Frenky, who did the historic edition of this mod, because he's done an amazing job. Later on in this race, you'll see I catch up with some Jordans, which are a slower car, but they're true to life, incredibly quick in a straight line. But it's a very immersive experience in this mod. Now, Chiesa here, you can see, he's got blue flags. I'm trying to execute a pass, and he fights me as though he's fighting for position. So, they're not perfect, and I've effectively, with these lap cars, I've got to throw myself into a position like I would attacking a competitor in a slower car, rather than passing somebody who's a lap down. But I guess it all adds to the challenge. It's lap 33 now, and the next lapped car that I've come up against is JJ Leto in the Dallara Ferrari. Leto tends to be not too unpredictable, not too much of a handful in these lap car situations, but still I end up having to partially accompany him through the final chicane, but he seems to make less of a mess of it than some of the other drivers have, and then allows me through without much drama. I'll show you an overhead of that manoeuvre just for a bit of entertainment value. So this is the start of the very next lap. So we've got turn 1 here, turn 2, and I just want you to see how delicate it is. Exiting turn 2 here, you've got a lot of steering lock, but you're trying to accelerate as quick as you can, and every lap that corner is a handful, and that is why I love RFactor 2. I mean, it's a Formula 1 car, but in a slow first gear corner, you just have no aero, and the car has enormous amount of power and not much grip at all. That corner there in Sector 1 is also not very pleasant at all, because you're always exiting that with a lot of lock and trying to get your speed up as quickly as you can. So this becomes my in lap. I'm looking ahead of me here, and I can see my teammate Martin Brundle in that pack, but I can also see a lot of lapped cars, and what that says to me is that the next 2 or 3 laps are going to be quite fraught. So that's my teammate 2 cars ahead of me there. I can see that the next few laps are going to be quite fraught with lap traffic, and that I've gotten close enough to Brundle to make it worth my while to pit now. I've looked at the delta to the cars behind me, and it looks like I'm going to be able to exit behind Harkonnen, but still ahead of Herbert if everything goes well during the pit stop. So I dive in for a fresh set of tyres. So while that's happening, we jump ahead to the cars ahead of me, and that's Alesi still leading Brundle, but in Sector 1, Alesi trips over one of the marchers and has a bit of a moment and a bit of a semi-spin, and my erstwhile teammate Brundle needs no second invitation to spear through, and that's Brundle clearing Alesi. Back now to the pit straight, and that's Mika Häkkinen through in the first of the 2 Lotuses, and we've got Johnny Herbert coming down the pit straight, but that is my car there on the right as I exit pit lane. Will I clear Herbert or not? This is what I've been trying to time my pit stop to do, and that is me just out a hair's breadth ahead of Johnny Herbert, who hasn't yet pitted, and his tyres are certainly a long way from new, but my tyres are cold. Now, despite it being a Formula 1 mod, these cars come out at atmospheric temperature, ambient temperature, and it takes a good lap and a half to really bring them in. And if you're too savage at the beginning, they'll either let go. It's very easy to flat spot them. In fact, you've got to move the brake bias rearwards until the tyres fully heat up and fully grip up, and you get that big weight transfer forward. So these are the little immersive little details that you've got to attend to make the whole thing work for you. So it's lap 37 now. I've had a full lap since my pit stop, so the tyres are starting to come in now, but they're not optimal yet. And in front of me here I've got Bertrand Gachot, aka Travis Bickle, famous London taxi passenger, and in front of him Morbidelli. And in front of Morbidelli we've got my old mate Chiesa, who I'll come up to later in the lap. Now at this point in time, having stopped, I'm back in P8 because I've got Hakkinen in front of me, as well as Alesi, Brundle, both of the McLarens and both of the Williams. So, but of course, a lot of these cars are yet to stop. I'm one of the first to stop, although Nigel Mansell from the lead actually pitted at around about lap 30. And this is probably the most intense part of the whole race, because although none of my immediate competitors are around me, I'm actually racing people that are between 8 seconds and 24 seconds ahead of me. So Hakkinen's 8 seconds up the road. I keep talking to my engineer, Jeff, who advises me that Martin Brundle is sort of 24 seconds ahead of me. But by the end of this stint, I pulled that down to 22 seconds. But this is the most intense period, because this is where I've got to really unleash my strategy. I'm trying to do an undercut, which is of course to go quicker on my fresh tyres than my competitor is doing on his old tyres prior to his pit stop. And at the moment I'm racing somebody I cannot physically see, and I'm trying to make sure I'm ahead of them before they exit the pit lane in 8 laps time. Now ahead of me is JJ Leto in the Dallara Ferrari, and that's a lap car situation, but ahead of him is Mika Hakkinen in the first of the two Lotuses, and that is for position. So I'm now in the optimum state this car's going to be in. We've had our pit stop, we're on fresh tyres, the tyres are in, fuel load is low. Hakkinen is on worn tyres, he hasn't pitted yet from the beginning, and this is lap 40, so he's not at a crazy endurance level for these tyres, but certainly they're past their prime. So I'm now on full attack, because I would rather pass him on track than pass him when he pits. So a bit of background, last season I was in Hakkinen's Lotus, so it's nice to see him back in the car. This season I'm in one of the Benettons, and it was a toss-up which one I chose, whether I would take Brundle's seat or Schumacher's seat. And in my head I just wanted to be teammates with Brundle. In the theatre of the Hollywood version of this season, it's because Schumacher was waiting for a better cheating traction control system to be developed by Benetton, and there was a slight delay on that. But here's me attacking Hakkinen. He defends pretty neatly there through the first chicane. I get a small toe on the pit straight and manage to throw him a little bit of a Daniel Ricciardo fakie to the outside, and then dive to the inside with a clean pass, using a lot of apex there, which worked well. Here's the overhead view. It's interesting, even through a 70-lap race, I think I started to drive this track better than I did at the beginning. I was taking a lot more apex there at that first left-hand corner, which I guess is officially turn 2. And you can see here I take quite a lot of apex, but there's no contact. It's not a biff and barge overtake, it's just a nice, clean, strong overtake. And that is for P7. And here we come to lap the talented Brazilian racing driver Roberto Moreno. Roberto Moreno was the victor in the 1981 Australian Grand Prix, defeating the newly crowned Formula One world champion and his countryman Nelson Piquet. Surely Moreno is one of the underrated, unsung heroes of our sport. So lap 43 now, and exiting the hairpin and coming up on the very, very unpredictable Tarquini. We've seen him have issues in front of me, and I've almost tripped over him in several Grand Prix, including Melbourne last season. Let's see what Tarquini's got in store for us this time round, and he doesn't disappoint, fully sideways. I've had to take avoiding action and trundle through avoiding the chicane to avoid a massive pile-up with Tarquini. Lap 46, and finally Jean Alesi in the first of the two Ferraris pits from in front of me, finally promoting me into P6 and the first of the points. But now I'm coming up against the back of Aguri Suzuki and Jean-Paul Belmondo. Suzuki in the footwork, pretty reliable, pretty skilled driver. Let's be through with a minimum fuss. Belmondo is a little bit less of a known factor, piloting one of the marches. It's lap 46 and Gerhard Berger, the Austrian McLaren driver, pits from P3. Finally, Brundle pits, lap 48 of 70, and my teammate pits 13 laps later than me. And this is exactly where I was in the sister Benetton when I got the news from my engineer that Brundle had entered pit lane. So I'm heading up the long straight here, adjacent to the rowing arena, and I'm wondering if I'm going to manage to clear Martin while he's in the pits, but I'm also thinking with only 22 laps remaining in the race and Martin on brand new tyres that he's going to exit the pits on absolutely full attack. And there's the moment there where I managed to get past him. And this is what I've been working hard on for 13 laps, and that's how close it was. The handiwork of my 13 laps of hot pursuit to try to get that undercut and jump him in the pits. So Brundle's leaving the pits. His tyres are cold. His tyres are going to take a little while to come in, but once they come in, he is going to be all over me like a cheap suit. So I need to dispatch this Tyrrell as absolutely quick as I can, but he's not making life easy, and I don't want to take any risk, but I managed to clear him. But Brundle is looking very, very businesslike, and he's going to clear him in no time as well. So that move has now put me into P5 with 22 laps to go, and now we're going to have a pretty intense fight between the two teammates, and I'll just stop talking and let you enjoy it for a minute. This is from Brundle's perspective. Now the AI have been rubbish into this hairpin all race long, but what does Brundle go and do? Only just launches the perfect attack on me and manages to clear me on the exit of the hairpin. You can see me there in Brundle's left mirror, and now we're having an onboard shot from my perspective. And we can see Brundle in my right mirror. I'm thinking I'm okay here, but he gets a wonderful drive off the hairpin and manages to clear me, and I am in panic mode now because I know he's on very fresh rubber. His tyres are warmed up now. I get a bit of a slipstream from him. In fact, I was a bit caught out by the overspeed and ended up giving him a very, very light tap on the rear diffuser, but no harm done there, and won the position back. So very, very proud of that little battle. Let's have a look from the overhead. Brundle launches a magnificent attack up the inside. Best I saw from any of the AI for the whole race. And here's me looking very, very ordinary, and I've got to work extremely quickly now to recover this situation, because he will be like an uncorked bottle if I let him jump ahead of me. He will drive off into the distance. So I outbrake him into the final chicane and recover my position to my great relief. So this battle between the two teammates continues on for a full 5 laps, from lap 50, where Brundle's on full attack, through to lap 55, and I'm looking back to Brundle now from in front. That's Brundle's perspective looking forwards at me, and I've managed to get it on top of where the critical parts are that he can attack me, managing to be fast where I need to be and can be, and managing to hold off Brundle. And I'm thinking, yeah, I think I can do this. There's only 15 laps to go till the end of the race, and I think I'm going to manage to keep him in place and outscore my teammate, which is as important or more important for me this particular race than getting in the points. I wanted to outdrive Brundle on track, which I haven't really done in a clean fight so far. So I'm managing to hold him at bay without going sort of full Perez, full Sergio Perez on Ocon, or full Max Verstappen on Daniel Ricciardo. I'm just occupying as much track as I need to occupy and not making it easy for him to make decisions. And if anything, I'm gradually managed to pull a tiny micro gap. And then what happens there, you saw my car stutter. I had a momentary screen freeze, and that allowed Brundle through. So sadly, I was back in P6, Brundle was in P5. I had 15 laps to go to try to make amends, and once again the race was on. Brundle ahead of me with fresh rubber, pretty much 13 laps fresher than mine anyway, and me trying to catch him at the same time as he's threading his way through the very cooperative AI. one of the interesting things is when you're coming up to lap the faster cars, it is a lot harder. Coming up to lap Roberto Moreno in an on-ground motor is one thing, but coming up to lap Stefan Modena in one of the Saysol sponsored Jordans is entirely another. The Gary Anderson Jordans have always been fast in a straight line, and that's why, for example, they've always done extremely well in Spa, and I think to the same extent Monza. But I managed to clear that Jordan, and it's keeping the hope alive. I mean, and here's the next Jordan. So the first one must have been Googleman, and this one is Modena. So I've cleared both the Jordans now. I can still see my teammate just up ahead. He, of course, has gotten through the Dallara Ferrari, but I'm still daring to believe that it's possible that maybe I can somehow catch a bit overeager there, determined to get down the right-hand side, and ended up tagging, I think, JJ Leto in the Dallara. So here I am, I'm chasing Brundle again, having to redo all the hard work that I did over that 13-lap period of undercut, and just managing to stay tantalisingly close and keep the dream alive that I can beat the teammate for 5th place rather than just bring it home in 6th place. But here at the hairpin I got incredibly ambitious. I figured, well, I can throw it down the inside and surely I'm going to have the edge. But you can see there Brundle again disappears up the track, and you can see what happened here. It was a bit of desperation but not entire madness. I thought I could go around the inside, but I twice caught wheels on that other car, and that was enough to just put me into dire straits and give me no chance of catching Brundle. So now we've got a lapping situation. This is either Mansell or Petraeus. Mansell. I was letting Mansell go through, got a bit untidy. Now I'm coming up to lap one of the marches, and I want to get this done as quick as I can, but I'm a little bit offline, and this is a mistake creeps in. I spin the car, get it back going again, no harm done. And then the second, Jordan I'd lap passes me. The second of the Williams laps me, that's Petraeus, no problem at all. But in my haste I did not take enough notice of that red car, and that is Alesi, and that is for position. So that's me now down and out of the points after about 68 laps of racing, and Alesi ahead of me. Now I'm hoping and thinking that maybe the Ferrari's not that quick, but I did finally get a tiny bit of luck. Alesi had to pit for a mechanical repair, allowing me to steal the final point in P6.